Awesome. We are now live over on YouTube on both horizontal and vertical, as well as, of course, the mainstream is over on Twitch. Hi, Phoenix. Hello. We are starting a new... Oh my god, my iron supplement. You guys see, I had already forgotten. And it was Fidge's pinned message, which I was rolling my eyes at, thinking it was overkill. But that's what reminded me. I just took it. Iron supplement. Took my iron supplement. Wait, I need to take vitamin C with it as well. I need to take some vitamin C with it as well. Thank you guys for reminding me multiple times, because apparently that's what I need. That is what I need. Okay. Let me start this stream and then just start chomping on these. Right, set of 48 hours. Oh my god. I swear I don't need babysitting in like every area of my life. Okay. 48 hours. Let's go. Nice. You have the book in hardcover? Dude, I used to have the book in hardcover. I don't know what happened to it. Hi Ubercoo. Okay. Let me... There is the link over on Twitch. If you would like to download the book and read along, let me pin it. These vitamin C's are so yummy. And let me put it over on the tubes. Hi DJ. Over on YouTube. Hello, hello. Yes, for anyone on Twitch who has not subbed to the channel yet, and or who is able to open up the stream on YouTube, like if you have a second monitor or a third monitor or phone or something that I could be open, that really helps with the watch hours. We're working on a goal of unlocking the YouTube partner program, so it's very much appreciated if you're able to do it. Yeah. And we are diving into a new book tonight. We finished The Odyssey. What day was that on? Was that on Thursday, I guess? We finished The Odyssey on Thursday. Setting up the YouTube lurk now. Non, thank you. I really appreciate that. It really, really, really helps. Have you played any of the Nancy Drew games? No. But should I look into them? Are they good? No worries, Fidge. I was on the ball. See, I told you. I'm on the ball about certain things in my life. Taking my iron supplement is not one of them. They're good? Okay, I'll have to look into those for you. I loved reading Nancy Drew as a kid. I had a few of those yellow cloth-bound hardcover Nancy Drews, like the OG covers, and I have no idea what happened to them, which is tragic. But yes, this book just came into the public domain in January 2026. And I'm so excited to read it because I have not read a Nancy Drew book since I was a kid. Yeah. Can you see the hearts being spammed? I can. I've got both the YouTube stream formats and the Twitch stream all like open over on this other monitor, and I can see it out of the corner of my eye whenever the hearts spam on YouTube, and it always gives me like a little fuzzy feeling. So yeah, I don't always comment on it, but just know I do see it and I love it, so thank you. What book is it? It is Nancy Drew, It is The Secret of the Old Clock. Yep. She calls them grandma games. Hell yeah. Maybe Ingable could play it. Making sure I wasn't getting this carpal tunnel for nothing. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Sinchovi. Hi, Wine Guy. You can't get your main account back in chat? Do you mean on YouTube there? Or do you mean over on Twitch? What element is represented by the symbol Fe? That's iron. Don't sass me, Fitch. Don't sass me. Okay. I have this open. There we go. Alright. The Secret of the Old Clock. I'm so excited. Without sass, you're nothing. You got some other things. You got gumption and attitude and fooling around energy. Okay. All right, you guys. Let's jump in. What's up those basement chains to rattle? Exactly. All right. The Secret of the Old Clock by Carolyn Keene, a Nancy Drew mystery story. Which, yes, just came into the public domain this year. In fact, the date on here on this ebook version says February 13th, 2026. Like, I think it came into the public domain officially January 1st, but being made into an ebook for Project Gutenberg just 5 days ago. So, hell yeah. Alright. Alright. Excellent. There's 25 chapters. Hot off the presses. Oh, don't call it hot off the post-dead people presses. That sounds like something else. That sounds like something made to compress dead people, and that's just a very different vibe. Very different vibe. Test. I see you, DJ. I see you. These presses are made of dead people. Books are compressed dead people's memories. Okay, yes, some of them. True, true. Oh my god, Stararchives. Extra, extra, bleed all about it. Okay, well now this is becoming like an idea. Sounds like the Necronomicon. Someday we will all be books. I could only be so lucky. Alright. Chapter 1. The Lost Will. It would be a shame if all that money went to the Tophams. They will fly higher than ever. Nancy Drew, a pretty girl of 16, leaned over the library table and addressed her father, who sat reading a newspaper by the study lamp. I beg your pardon, Nancy. What were you saying about the Tophams? Carson Drew, a noted criminal and mystery case lawyer, known far and wide for his work as a former district attorney, looked up from his evening paper and smiled indulgently upon his only daughter. Now, as he gave her his respectful attention, he was not particularly concerned with the Richard Topham family, but rather with the rich glow of the lamp upon Nancy's curly golden bob. Not at all the sort of head which one expected to indulge in serious thoughts, he told himself. Just a nice little bit of old-fashioned, well-meaning misogyny. Hi, Tabreen. Hi, Pirithous. It's a marvel she's not an idiot. Mischievously, Nancy reached over and tweaked his ear. You weren't paying a bit of attention, she accused him sternly. I was saying I think it's mean if those snobbish Tophams fall heir to all of Josiah Crowley's fortune. Can't something be done about it? Removing his horn-rimmed spectacles and carefully folding the paper, Carson Drew regarded his daughter meditatively. I'm afraid not, Nancy. A will is a will, you know. But it does seem unfair that all the money should go to them, especially when they never treated Josiah Crowley like a human being. Well, the Tophams were never noted for their charitable dispositions, Carson Drew observed with a smile. However, they did give Josiah a home. Yes, and everyone knows why. They wanted to work him into leaving all his money to them. And it seems that their scheme worked, too. Well, they treated him like a prince until he made his will in their favor, and then they acted as though he were dirt under their feet. Folks said he died just to be rid of their everlasting nagging. The Tophams aren't very well liked in our little city, are they? Mr. Drew commented dryly. Well, who could like them, Father? Richard Topham is an old skinflint who made his money by gambling on the stock exchange. And Cora, his wife, is nothing but a vapid social climber. The two girls, Isabel and Ada, are even worse. I went to school with them, and I never saw such stuck-up creatures in all my life. If they fall heir to any more money, this town won't be big enough to hold them. All right, Nancy, tell us how you really feel. In her estimate of the Topham family, Nancy Drew did not exaggerate. Nearly everyone in River Heights shared the opinion that the Tophams were snobbish and arrogant, and the treatment they accorded old Josiah Crowley had aroused a great deal of unfavorable comment. Nancy had never known Josiah well, but had often seen him on the street and secretly had regarded him as a rather nice but extremely queer sort of individual. His wife had died during the influenza epidemic following the World War, and since that time Crowley had made his home with various relatives. Although well-to-do, he preferred to visit around. At first, the Tophams had evidenced no interest in the old man, and he had been forced to live with kindly relatives who were scarcely able to have him with them. Crowley appreciated the sacrifice and openly declared that he intended to make his will in their favor. Then, 3 years before his death, the Topham family experienced a sudden change of heart. They begged Josiah Crowley to make his home with them, and at last he consented. Presently, rumor had it that the Tophams had induced him to make his will in their favor. But as time went on and Mr. Crowley, though failing in health, maintained as firm a grip on life as ever, the Tophams treated him unkindly. Although he continued to live with them, it was whispered about that frequently he slipped away to visit his old friends, and that he intended to change his will again, cutting the Tophams out entirely. Then, one day, Josiah Crowley took to his bed and did not get up. Just before his death, he attempted to communicate something to the doctor who attended him, but his words were unintelligible. After the funeral, only one will came to light, and to the surprise of everyone, it gave the entire fortune to the Tophams. Father, what do you suppose it was that Mr. Crowley tried to tell the doctor just before he died? Nancy demanded, after a moment of thought. "Do you imagine he was trying to disclose something about his will?" "Very likely, Nancy. Probably he intended to leave his money to more deserving relatives, but fate cheated him of the opportunity." "But isn't it possible that he did make such a will, and that he was trying to tell what he had done with it?" "Yes, that's a possibility, of course. Josiah Crowley was rather queer in many ways." "Perhaps he hid the will somewhere," Nancy suggested thoughtfully. "Well, if he did, I'm afraid it will never come to light. The Tophams will see to that." "What do you mean, Father?" "Well, the estate is a considerable one." "I understand, Nancy, and the Tophams don't intend that anyone shall get a cent of it. It's my private opinion that they will take care that a second will is never found." "Do you mean that if they discovered the will, they would destroy it?" "Well, I'm not making any accusations, Nancy, but I do know that Richard Topham is shrewd, and he isn't noted for his honesty." "Well, can't the present will be broken?" "I doubt it. Well, I haven't gone into the case. I am of the opinion that the Tophams have a legal right to the fortune. It would cost considerable to contest the will, and so far as I know, the other relatives are in poverty. They have filed a claim, declaring that a later will was made in their favor, but I doubt that the matter will ever go further." "But the Tophams don't deserve the fortune, Father. It doesn't seem fair." "No, it isn't fair, but it is legal, and I'm afraid nothing can be done about it. There were 2 girls who lived somewhere on the river road that were great pets of Crowley's when they were children. It seems to me that they should have had something, and there are a number of relatives who really deserve a portion of the fortune." Nancy nodded thoughtfully and relapsed into silence while she digested the facts of the case. From her father, she had acquired the habit of thinking things through to their logical conclusion. Frequently, Carson Drew had assured her that she went at a thing like a detective. Well, certainly she had a naturally clever mind and took more than an ordinary interest in strange or baffling cases. Carson Drew, a widower, showered a great deal of affection upon his daughter. It was his secret boast that he had taught her to think for herself and to think logically. Since he knew that Nancy could be trusted with confidential information, he frequently discussed his interesting cases with her. A number of times Nancy had been present at interviews which her father had had with noted detectives who desired his aid in solving perplexing mysteries, and those occasions stood out as red-letter days for her. There was something about a mystery which aroused Nancy's interest, and she was never content until it was solved. More than once her father had found her suggestions, or intuitions as he called them, extremely helpful. For a reason which she could not understand, the Crowley case had attracted Nancy's attention, although it had not fallen into her father's hands. She had a certain feeling that a mystery lurked behind it. "Father, do you believe Josiah Crowley ever made a second will?" Nancy demanded suddenly. "You're a regular lawyer, the way you cross-examine me," Carson Drew protested, but with evident enjoyment. "Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know whether he ever made a second will or not. All I do know is that... but perhaps I shouldn't mention it, since my information is not very definite." "Oh, go on," Nancy commanded impatiently. "You're trying to tease me." "Well, I do remember that one day, nearly a year ago, I was standing in the First National Bank when Crowley came in with Henry Rolsted." "Not the attorney who specializes in wills and legal documents?" "Yes. Well, as I was saying, they came into the bank together. I had no intention of listening to their conversation, but I couldn't help but hear that they were discussing a will. Crowley made an appointment to call at Rolsted's office the following day." "Well, that looks as though Mr. Crowley had made up his mind to write a new will, doesn't it?" That was the thought which passed through my mind at the time. You say you overheard the conversation nearly a year ago, Nancy mused. That was nearly 2 years after Mr. Crowley had made the will in favor of the Tophams, wasn't it? Yes. It was likely Crowley had made up his mind to change the will. I suspect he intended to cut the Tophams out, but whether or not he did, I have no way of knowing. Well, Mr. Volstead is an old friend of yours, isn't he? He is. An old friend and an old college classmate. Then why don't you ask him if he ever drew up a will for Mr. Crowley? That's a rather delicate question to ask, young lady. He may tell me it's none of my business. Oh, you know he won't. Oh, you're such a noted attorney that other lawyers feel flattered when you take an interest in their cases. Oh, will you do it? Please. I can't promise to blunder into his office and demand the information. Why this sudden interest in the case, Nancy? Oh, I don't know. Well, mystery always interests me, I guess. And it does seem to me that someone ought to help those poor relatives. You take after your old dad, I am afraid. But I'm curious to know what mystery you have discovered. Well, if a will is missing, isn't that a mystery? If it is actually missing, yes. But it's possible that if Crowley ever wrote the will, he changed his mind and destroyed it. He was subject to sudden whims, you know. Well, anyhow, I'd like to learn more about the case if I can. Will you talk with Mr. Volstead? You are persistent, Nancy. And Mr. Drew smiled. Well, I suppose I could invite him to take luncheon with me tomorrow. Oh, please do, Nancy interrupted eagerly. That would be a splendid opportunity to find out everything he knows about the will. All right, I'll try to do it, but I warn you not to expect startling news. Carson Drew glanced at his watch. Why, it's nearly midnight, Nancy. We've been discussing this case for over an hour. Better run off to bed now and forget the Tophams. All right, Nancy agreed, somewhat reluctantly. Don't forget your promise tomorrow at luncheon. Long after his daughter had retired, Carson Drew sat by the fire. At last he, too, arose. It wouldn't surprise me if Nancy had stumbled upon a real mystery, he told himself, as he snapped out the electric light and turned toward the stairway. Perhaps I shouldn't encourage her to dig into it, but after all, it's in a good cause. End of chapter. Hi, Swaghammer. Gonna rest. Sounds good. Enjoy your rest. Zagamaxius, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Hello, hello. You thought you were going crazy until you realized there's two versions of the book, really? Oh, and you've got the other version? I wonder what's different about them. That's interesting. How different is it? I wonder why they needed to re-edit it. Nancy's a boy in the other. Oh my god. Hi, Smoke and Mirror. Please suggest a short horror story. Well, we do spooky season every September, October. And last spooky season, okay, yes, Follow the House of Usher is good. I mean, you can't go wrong with Edgar Allan Poe. Last spooky season, we read through a collection of short stories by Joseph Faradin Le Fanu. The collection we read was In a Glass Darkly, but he has several collections of short horror stories. So, that's another one to look into. In a Glass Darkly contains Carmilla, which if you want to listen to my reading of Carmilla, that one's actually edited and up on the YouTube channel. If you want to check that one out. At that YouTube link where I'm also live there right now, but Carmilla is all edited if you want to just listen to it. It's so good. It's so good. Is it the 1930 version? Because it's on Project Gutenberg. Oh, interesting. Okay. Nice. Okay, let's jump into chapter 2. Chapter 2, A Chance Meeting. Also, am I making Nancy sound too ditzy? It's just, I know I've got kind of a deeper voice for a lady, and I'm trying to, she's a 16-year-old girl, so I'm trying to pitch my voice higher, but I don't want to make her sound ditzy, you know, like, she's a smart girl. Voices sound fine? Okay. I know she's got a ditzy friend. What's her name? Bess? Bess? It's been so long. The, like, hot blonde. What did your voice sound like at 16? It was low. I've always had a low voice. Oh, I see what you're saying. So don't put on a high voice. The yellow wall. Oh yeah, we read that on stream. Dude, the yellow wallpaper is so good. Did we read that within this past year, or was that like the year before? How long ago did we read it? It's so good. It's not necessary. No, you're right. I might try to pitch her down a little bit because I want Bess to be like girlier. And then who's the third friend? George? And she's like a tomboy. Might have been 2 years ago. Maybe. So good. So good. Okay. Chapter 2. A Chance Meeting. Don't forget your luncheon engagement with Mr. Rolstead, Nancy Drew reminded her father the next morning at the breakfast table. I'll telephone him the first thing after I reach my office, Carson Drew promised. But again, I warn you not to anticipate startling news. I won't, Father, Nancy laughed. But if I should happen to learn something which has a bearing on the missing well, I won't be exactly disappointed. What are your plans for the day, Nancy? Oh, nothing special. I thought I would do a little shopping this morning. And I am invited to a party one of the girls is giving in the afternoon. Then you are too busy to take luncheon with me. Oh, Father, you know I've just been dying for an invitation, Nancy declared, her eyes dancing. I'm so anxious to learn something about that will. All right, well, if you have time, drop in at my office about 12:30. Mr. Rolstead may not accept my invitation, but if he does, we'll try to find something out. We'll try to find out something about Josiah Crowley. Of course, I don't need to warn you not to appear too eager for information. I'll let you do all the talking, Nancy told him. I'll just keep my ears open. I'll look for you at 12:30 then. Mr. Drew pushed back his chair and glanced at his watch. I must hurry now, or I'll be late getting downtown. After her father had left, Nancy Drew finished her breakfast and then went to the kitchen to consult with Hannah, the maid, concerning the work of the day. Although only 16, Nancy was unusually capable, and under her skillful direction, everything ran smoothly in the Drew household. On the death of her mother 6 years before, she had taken over the entire management of the establishment. At the age of 10? Holy moly. The Drews employed one servant, Hannah Gruen, an elderly maid of all work who had been with them for many years. And the responsibility of the household might have weighed heavily upon Nancy, but she was the type of girl who was capable of accomplishing a great many things in a comparatively short length of time. She enjoyed sports of all kinds, and she found time for clubs and parties. All right, we get it. Nancy's perfect. All right. In school, Nancy had been very popular, and she boasted many friends. People declared that she had a way of taking life very seriously, without impressing one as being the least bit serious herself. While at school, Nancy had made one particular chum, Helen Corning, of whom we shall hear more later. She had also made 2 enemies, the Topham sisters. Once she had caught Ada in wrongdoing in class, and both sisters had placed the blame on Nancy. But Helen and 2 others had come to Nancy's rescue. Since that time, Ada and Isabel had been more hateful to Nancy than ever. I'll not be back for luncheon today, Nancy told Hannah as she prepared to leave the house. I've made out the dinner menu and ordered the groceries, so I guess you won't need me for a few hours. Leaving the house, she went to the garage where she kept her automobile. It was a shining new blue roadster, the birthday gift of her father. What the fuck, Nancy? Okay. Look at your pretty new car. She's fucking 16. She's got a rich daddy. Oh my god. Well, Niva, sometimes my guinea pigs show their feet. That's the only kind of foot cam I have, but, okay. Leaving the house. Oh no, I already read that. Okay. Quickly backing the automobile to the street, she set off for the shopping district. She drove swiftly down the boulevard, and upon reaching the more congested streets, wormed her way skillfully through heavy traffic. Entering a department store, she made a number of small purchases on the main floor, and then went directly to the wearing apparel section, as it was her intention to purchase a frock suitable for the afternoon party to which she had been invited. Oh, Nancy's rich. Okay. I didn't really remember a lot of details about this. Girl is upper class. Okay. Alrighty. Usually, Nancy found the service excellent, but this morning was an especially busy one, and an extra rush of customers had temporarily overwhelmed the sales force. She did not mind waiting her turn, but quietly sat down in a convenient chair and glanced about with interest. After a time, her attention was attracted toward two girls who, like herself, were waiting for an available saleswoman, but less patiently. Instantly, Nancy recognized them as Ada and Isabel Topham. Your voice is upper class? Aw, good fellow. Thank you. They were remonstrating with the floor manager, and their voices carried so far that she could not help hearing what they said. We have been standing here nearly 10 minutes, Ada said petulantly. Send a saleswoman to us immediately. Oh, I'm afraid I can't, the floor manager said regretfully. There are a number of others ahead of you, an extra rush of customers. Perhaps you don't know who we are, Ada interrupted rudely. Indeed I do, the floor manager told her, with a trace of weariness. I will have a saleswoman here in a few moments, if you will only wait. We are not accustomed to waiting, Isabel Topham told him icily. Such service, Ada chimed in. Do you realize that my father owns stock in this store? If we report your conduct to him, he could have you discharged. Oh, I'm sorry, the harassed floor manager apologized, but it is a rule in the store. You must await your turn. Ada tossed her head, and her dark eyes flashed angrily. In spite of the expensive clothes she wore, she was anything but attractive, for she was tall and slender to the point of being termed skinny. Now that her face was distorted with anger, she was positively ugly. Damn. No, I thought I'd let you do the honors, Fidge. Isabel, who was the pride of the Topham family, was rather pretty, in a vapid sort of way. But Nancy Drew thought that her face lacked character. She had acquired an artificial manner of speaking, which was both irritating and amusing. It was her mother's ambition that someday she marry into a wealthy family, and every opportunity was given her for a brilliant match. The two sisters were older than Nancy, but had been in her class at school. She had found them stupid as well as arrogant. They had never been popular with their classmates, and had boasted few friends. Hi, Buddha. What do you mean I came back? From where? You mean because I took Sunday off? Yes, hello. She really pulled out that, do you know who my father is? You thought I was never gonna come back. That's not catastrophizing things at all. Now, as they turned from the floor manager and saw her for the first time, Nancy bowed. Isabel coldly returned the bow, but did not speak a word of greeting. Ada gave no indication that she had even noticed her. Snobs, Nancy told herself. The next time, I won't even bother to speak to them. At that moment, a saleswoman hurried toward the Topham girls, and at once they began to shower abuse upon her for her failure to wait upon them sooner. Nancy watched them curiously as they examined the gowns which the saleswoman brought out for their approval. Evidently, Isabel and Ada were in an unpleasant frame of mind, for they tossed aside beautiful creations of lace and chiffon with scarcely a second glance. They found fault with everything. A very chic gown, the saleswoman told them hopefully, as she displayed an attractive dress. It is a Paris model and arrived this morning. Ada picked it up, gave it one careless glance, and then tossed it into a chair. The gown slipped to the floor in a crumpled mass, and to the horror of the saleswoman, Ada stepped on it as she turned to examine another dress. What the fuck, Ada? That is so unnecessarily bitchy. Hi, Liam. Liam. You are always like, oh. Well, thank you. I mean, not actually in literal fact, but thank you. I appreciate that. How are you doing, Liam? Thank you so much for the sub. Oh my goodness, 17 months now. Amazing. Ione Baba. In disgust, Nancy moved away and began to examine a rack of dresses in another part of the room. Presently, as she wandered back, she saw that Ada and Isabel were leaving without having made a purchase. As they swept past, Ada brushed against her. Instead of apologizing, she wheeled and surveyed Nancy coldly. Do watch where you're going, she said tartly. Now, yeah, I know that was mean, wasn't it? Nancy stifled a sharp retort and made no reply. Not without amusement, she watched the Topham sisters as they flounced to the elevator. I don't wonder that people say such mean things about them, Nancy told herself. Her thoughts were cut short as a saleswoman offered her services. It was the same girl who had waited upon the Topham sisters. Nancy quickly selected a party frock of blue crepe, which matched her eyes, and went to the fitting room to try it on. It's a real pleasure to serve you, Miss Drew, the saleswoman assured her when they were alone. Oh, but how I dread to see the Topham sisters come into the store. They're so unreasonable. Ada and Isabel aren't very popular, Nancy agreed. They seem to think their word is law. The saleswoman sighed. And I'm afraid it will be, if they get all Josiah Crowley's money. She lowered her voice. The estate hasn't been settled, but they're counting on the fortune already. I heard Miss Ada say to her sister, "Oh, I guess we'll get all of old Crowley's fortune as soon as the lawyers stop squabbling." But it's my opinion the Tophams are mightily worried for fear someone will show up with a later will, which may do them out of most of it. What size town do they live in that, like, this random saleswoman is gossiping about? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, her father went to work downtown. Is this department store also down? Like, anyway, just curious. Nancy was far too wise to engage in gossip with the saleswoman. for she could not tell how far anything she might say would be carried. But she was interested in the information. The fact that the Tophams were worried indicated to her that they were of the opinion that Josiah Crowley had made a second will. Evidently, they were somewhat disturbed by the claims of the other relatives. Ordering the frock which she had purchased, sent to her home, Nancy glanced at her watch and saw that it was after 12 o'clock. "Oh, I must hurry, or I'll be late in meeting Father," she thought, and left the store. She drove directly to her father's office, and although a few minutes ahead of the appointed time, found that he was ready to leave. "What luck, Father?" Nancy demanded eagerly when they were alone in the inner office. "Did Mr. Rolstead promise to take luncheon with you?" "Yes, we are to meet him at the Royal Hotel in 10 minutes. Do you still think I should quiz him about the Crowley will?" "Oh, I'm more than ever interested in the case, Father. I can't tell you why, but I just seem to know that Josiah Crowley made a second will." "Well, your intuitions are frequently correct, Nancy," Mr. Drew smiled, "so I'll do my best to find out what Mr. Rolstead knows about the case. However, I must warn you not to appear too eager for information, or he may suspect we have a dark motive behind the luncheon invitation." "I'll be careful," Nancy laughed. The Royal Hotel was located less than a block away, and Nancy and her father quickly walked the distance. As they entered the lobby, they found Mr. Rolstead there ahead of them. Carson Drew introduced his daughter, and the three made their way to the dining room, where a table had been reserved for them. At first, the conversation centered about a variety of subjects. As the luncheon progressed, the two lawyers began to talk enthusiastically of their college days together, and finally, of their profession. Nancy began to fear that the subject of the Crowley estate never would be brought up. Then, over the coffee cups, Carson Drew skillfully swung the conversation into a new channel and began to discuss strange cases which had fallen into his hands. "By the way, I haven't heard the details of the Crowley case. How are the Tophams making out? I understand the relatives are trying to break the will." For a moment, Mr. Rolstead remained silent, and Nancy began to think that he did not intend to enter into a discussion of the case. "Oh, Sage, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Hello." "The case wasn't turned over to me, Carson," the lawyer said quietly, "but I confess I followed it rather closely because of a special interest I happen to have in Crowley. As the present will stands, I do not believe it can be broken." "And then the Tophams will get the entire estate," Mr. Drew commented. "Yes, unless another will is uncovered." "Another will?" Carson Drew inquired innocently. "Then you believe Crowley made a second one?" Mr. Rolstead hesitated, as though uncertain whether or not he should divulge additional information, and then, with a quick glance about, he lowered his voice. "Of course, I wouldn't want this to get out," he began, doubtfully. "You may trust Nancy not to repeat," Mr. Drew observed, guessing what was in the lawyer's mind. "I've found that out by experience." And Carson Drew smiled upon his daughter. "Then I will say this much. It would not surprise me if another will should come to light. The Tophams treated Crowley most unkindly after he had made his will in their favor. About a year ago, Crowley came to my office and told me that he wanted to draw up a new will. He indicated that he intended to cut the Tophams off without a cent. He expressed a desire to write the will himself and asked me a number of questions. I told him exactly how to proceed. When he left my office, he promised that he would have me look over the document when he had drawn it up." "Then you actually saw the will?" Mr. Drew asked in surprise. "No. Strange to say, Crowley never came back. I don't know whether he drew up the will or not. And if he did, there would be an excellent chance that it would not be legal, I suppose. Yes, it's a real trick to draw up a will that cannot be broken. But Josiah Crowley was a very careful man. Still, if he left even a loophole, well, the Tophams would drag the matter into court. Yes, it is a foregone conclusion that the Tophams will keep the fortune, whether they have a right to it or not. Well, they have the advantage of money, you know. I believe the other relatives have filed a claim, but they have no proof a second will exists. And without money, they cannot hope to fight the Tophams. While her father and Mr. Rolstead discussed the case, Nancy Drew remained silent, but not a word of what was said escaped her. Although she gave no indication of her feelings, the information excited her. After a time, Mr. Drew paid the luncheon check, and the three arose and left the dining room. Mr. Rolstead took leave of them in the lobby. "Well, Nancy, did you find out what you wanted to know?" Carson Drew inquired, after the lawyer had disappeared. "Oh, Father, it's just as I suspected. Mr. Crowley did make a second will." "You mustn't jump hastily at conclusions," Mr. Drew warned her. "It's possible that Crowley never drew up the will at all. Or if he did, he may have destroyed it." "Oh, that's possible, of course. But he had no love for the Tophams, and I have a feeling he hid the will someplace. Oh, if only I could find it." "It would be as easy as looking for a needle in a haystack," Mr. Drew replied. "If I were you, I would forget about the case, Nancy." "Oh, I can't forget about it until I've at least made an attempt to find out what became of that will," Nancy insisted stubbornly. "All right, dig into the mystery if you like, but I'm afraid you've set yourself an impossible task. I don't see how you hope to discover what became of the will when you haven't even a clue." "I'll find a way," Nancy laughed. "Give me time, and I'll surprise you." But after she had said goodbye to her father and was slowly driving toward home, doubt assailed her. She knew that the odds were against her. Although she was determined to find out what had become of the Crowley will, she was at a loss to know how to begin. As her father had reminded her, she did not have a single clue. "Where there's a will, there's a way," she quoted whimsically. That old proverb is doubly true in the Crowley case. If there actually is a second will, I'm going to find it. And if I do, I hope it won't prove to be in the Tophams' favor. Are there horses? I don't know. Now, she seems to be driving an automobile, not a horse and carriage, so... Hi, Leah's Cloud. Hello. Let me just take a sip of drink before we jump into the next chapter. Alright. What are you guys thinking so far? I had like memories of reading it, but I didn't totally remember like what the tone is, so it's interesting to jump back into it. Okay. Alright. It's been a while since you've read this one. Yeah. Hi, Deep Red Deals. Hello. You've never read a Nancy Drew book before. They're pretty cozy. Alright. Chapter 3. Racing the Storm. "Nancy, if you haven't planned anything special for the day, I wonder if you would care to do a little errand for me," inquired Carson Drew one morning at the breakfast table. "Why, of course," Nancy agreed pleasantly. "What is it?" "I have a number of legal documents which must be delivered to Judge Hartgrave at Masonville sometime before noon. Well, I would take them myself, but I have several important appointments this morning." "I'll be glad to run the errand for you," Nancy promised willingly. "I can run over to Masonville in the roadster." Fuck you, girl. Okay. "It isn't more than a 15-mile jaunt." "Fine. Oh, that's a load off my mind. You're sure you don't mind?" "Oh, it's such a wonderful day. I'll enjoy the trip." Mr. Drew parted the curtains at the dining room window and looked out. Lady Edgy Fox is raiding. Welcome in, raiders. Hello. Also, hi, Artax. And Judo Dad. Hello. Uncle Bill. Hello. No, I don't remember that, Liam. Lady Edgy Fox, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome in, you guys. What were you getting up to tonight? How was your stream? If anyone is new here, hello, I'm Faolkor. We do a mixture of traditional ASMR and cozy reading time, and we have just started Nancy Drew and the Secret of the Old Clock. We're about to start chapter 3. So it is awesome to have you join us. Hi, Lady Fox. You just got home Artax from running your new campaign at game night? Hell yeah. Your players, 6 of them are having fun. You are as well. That's awesome, Artax. I'm glad to hear that's going well. Yeah, you guys make sure to drop a follow for Lady Edgy Fox. Were you guys reading as well tonight? The first chapter in your copy was... What? And it... Starchives, it definitely is the Secret of the Old Clock. Artax, thank you for the 300 biddies. Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. That's wild, Starchive. Okay, I'm very, I'm interested in the difference. She's relaxing between deep novels right now, so playing about with some ancient Greek tales and a bit of SCP files. Nice. Dude, we just finished reading The Odyssey, was our last book. So that's awesome. Yeah, we were just digging into Greek myths before this, and yeah, now we're having a cozy little mystery. We tend to jump around between genres a decent amount, so that's awesome. Well, it is so nice to have you here. Thank you again. You finished your reading stream of classic that's awesome. That is so cool. Let me drop you a follow, Lady Edgy Fox. Oh, and thank you for the follow as well. Very nice to meet you. I'll have to check out your content. Nice. All right. Well, and Lady Fox, please feel free to, obviously, we'd love to have you hang out, but please feel free also to pop out if you need to. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself after your own stream and resting and eating, whatever you need to do. Yeah, but thank you for the raid. Really nice to have you here. And Artax, thank you for gifting a sub to Hey Kalinsky. Thank you, Artax. Very kind of you. The Odyssey was great. I really enjoyed reading it. Yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, let's jump back into our book. All right. Oh, heck. Oh my goodness. Judo Dad Joe. Thank you for dropping your prime here. 12 months. Judo Dad, thank you for a year of subbing. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Ta-ta for now. Oh, have a good night, Lady Fox. Wow, none good. So it's like a whole thing. Wow. Wait, am I reading the earlier or the later version? Slut! I'm in Slut. Thank you for the 10 gift subs. What the heck? Oh my god. I'm in Slut. That's amazing. What the heck? Damn. Hi. You wandered into a Dracula reading and never let... Wait, what do you mean? Oh, that's when you first came in, is when we were reading Dracula? Hell yeah. Quite a few differences. You're reading the 1930 version. It seems better. The changes so far not great in the 80s version. Oh, interesting. Hi, Diabol. Hello. Lemon Slut, you absolute gem. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And oh, and Artax. Sorry, that got kind of lost in that flood, but Artax also for gifting a sub to Lady Edgy Fox. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the emotes, Lady Fox. The blue roadster becomes a blue convertible. Oh, so they make it like more modern. Oh no, I would definitely want to read the older one. Like, I love that they specify things like he turned off the electric lights, you know, because it's enough in the past that you would clarify that, because probably not everyone uses like electric lights throughout their house. Yeah, very quaint. She's not noted as being logical? What? GHT Shadia, thank you for choosing to use your Prime here. I really appreciate that. I might check out the link. Well, let me open it up at least so I don't lose it. I've already maybe lost it. It's somewhere in here. There it is. I will check out the differences later, but that is really interesting. Okay. All right. Was it the author who updated them, or was it like the publishing house that updated them? Like, had the author already passed, or? I'm pretty sure the version I had was the older one. Carolyn Keene was a pseudonym to begin with, but even if it's a pseudonym, was it not a single author writing them? Hi Trey, we're reading a Nancy Drew book. No, Trey, we're still reading. Why are you awake, Trey? It's way too late for you to be awake. Okay. You agree. A lot of it was ghostwritten? Okay. Alright. Carolyn Keene was a group of people. Okay, okay. Time is an enigma. Apparently they pulled 5 chapters from this book. Some things like stereotyping, language, people types have been removed. Okay. I mean, that's always something that we have to be on the lookout for. We read a lot of old books here. Some uncomfortable stereotypes, word choices, depictions come up. So, I mean, we're always kind of like that. That could happen in any book that we read. We have to be on the lookout for it. Starchives, thank you for the 100 biddies. Thank you. Mildred Wirt was the first author of the book we're reading tonight. Okay. Probably gonna be some old thing. Yeah. Lemon Slide, what the heck? Thank you for the 444 biddies. Thank you. You guys. You're so sweet. What the heck? How do we have... We just completed level 4 of a hype train? What is going on? Trey gonna try to get back to sleep? To this cozy mystery about a missing second will? That's really interesting that they updated it though. I mean, I already, like, there's a bit of, like, just the portrayal. There's definitely, like, misogyny in it, but in the way that, like, because there has always been the kind of misogyny that's always meant to be derogatory throughout the ages, but this is the kind of, like, of the time misogyny that wouldn't have been considered misogyny at the time. It's just like, baked into culture, you know? So. Also, this is how you know I'm serious when I say fall asleep to these streams. Oh, well, that's awesome, Trey. I'm glad you can sleep to them. You helped your ex build a collection of the original printings and cloth covers. Oh, amazing. What time is it over here? It is 11:15. I'm on Pacific time. All right, you guys. Let's jump back in. Nancy Drew hurried away to find her hat and purse. Before Mr. Drew had collected his own belongings, she had backed the roadster from the garage and was waiting for him at the curbing. Nancy subverts the misogyny of the time. It's part of her struggle. Yeah, but even, like, her father acknowledges that she's, like, smart and capable and treats her well and everything, and yet he looks at her, a girl with, like, pretty blonde hair, and he's like, wow, you wouldn't think that, like, a girl with that hair could actually be smart, you know? Like, that's just, that, you know, it's not meant to be, like, an insult, but it just inherently is. Anyway. Johnny, thank you for the 7-stream streak. Hi, how's it going, Johnny? Well, I haven't heard you mention the Crowley case lately, Mr. Drew commented as they rode along together. Have you forgotten about it? Nancy's face clouded. No, I haven't forgotten, but I must admit I've made no progress. I guess I'm not cut out for a detective. Oh, don't feel discouraged, Nancy. The Crowley case would baffle a professional. Well, I haven't given it up yet, Father. I may stumble onto a clue one of these days. Lemon Slut, thank you for the lurk. Sleep well. Mr. Drew is pretty progressive, but he's the competent man who supports his precocious daughter. Yeah, that's what I mean when I'm trying to describe, like, it is misogyny, but it's not, like, meant to be malicious. Do you know what I mean? It's still problematic and incorrect, but it wasn't, like, meant with malice. Yeah. But it is like icky from a modern viewpoint. Yeah. When they reached the law office, Nancy stopped the roadster and her father got out. He disappeared inside the building and, returning a few minutes later, placed a fat manila envelope in Nancy's hand. Give this to Judge Hargrave. You know where to find him? Yes, I'll have no trouble in finding his office. I've frequently driven as far as Masonville. Selecting the shortest route to her destination, Nancy deftly shifted gears and was off. As she rode along the gravel road, her eyes traveled to the fields on either side of the highway. Like a true daughter of the Middle West, Nancy Drew took pride in the fertility of her state and saw beauty in a crop of waving green corn, as well as in the rolling hills and the expanse of prairie land. I've never heard it called the Middle West, but I guess that makes sense. More than once, Nancy glanced anxiously at the sky. Yes, you have something to say? Okay. Yeah, it's probably a sick car. The sun shone down on the gravel road with dazzling intensity, but a large black cloud had settled in the west. Still, it did not appear to be rolling up very fast, and Nancy had gone to the courthouse. Nancy knew... Oh, wait. Oops. I skipped a page. And Nancy told herself that there was no need to worry. It won't rain for an hour or two. By that time, I'll be home, she thought. Nancy took her time on the road, and it was nearly 11 o'clock when she finally drove into Masonville. She went at once to Judge Hargrave's office, but was informed that he had gone to the courthouse. Nancy knew that the legal papers which she had been sent to deliver were important, and rather than leave them with the office girl, she set off in search of the judge. She had considerable trouble in finding him, and it was nearly 12 o'clock when at last she delivered the manila envelope into his hands. Learning that Nancy was the daughter of Carson Drew, Judge Hargrave insisted that she take luncheon at his home before returning to River Heights. Nancy accepted the invitation and spent a very pleasant hour in company with the judge and his wife. When at last she had insisted that she must start for home, it was after 1:30. "I have half a notion to take a different route back," she told Judge Hargrave as she stepped into her blue roadster. "It's a beautiful drive on the river road, but the trip will take longer, and I'm afraid it may rain." Judge Hargrave looked up at the sky, but in spite of a general murkiness, the sun was shining. "Oh, I don't believe it will rain for an hour or two," he said optimistically. "That big cloud is only bluffing." "Then I'll take the river road," Nancy decided. She said goodbye and started the motor. Soon she was spinning along the road which wound in and out along the Muskoka River. Nancy met few automobiles, for the road was infrequently traveled. She did not hurry, but took time to enjoy the scenery. Overhanging trees with dense foliage shaded the road and formed a tunnel which all but blotted out the sky. Presently, as Nancy drove into a clearing, she was astonished to see how dark it had become. Evidently, the big black cloud which had attracted her attention earlier in the day was no longer bluffing. It had grown rapidly in size and was spreading over the sky in an alarming fashion. As Nancy Drew watched, the sun vanished, as though by magic. "How foolish of me to take this road," she chided herself. "I'm going to get caught in the storm. Oh, there isn't a chance that I can make it." Although the river road was perfectly safe in dry weather, Nancy knew that a little rain would make it dangerously slippy. No, what the fuck? Let me try that again. Nancy knew that a little rain would make it dangerously slippery. Then, too, the road was little traveled, and in case of accident, she could not depend upon passing motorists for aid. If her roadster slipped into a ditch, it would be necessary to walk miles for help. A few persons lived along the river road, but the land was not considered valuable. In the spring of the year, with the arrival of heavy rains, the Muskoka River sometimes overflowed its banks and spread over the farmland, destroying the newly planted crops. For this reason, the district was not a popular one, and the land was held by poor folk. My tongue is not behaving. Let's, okay. If only I can find a farmhouse where I can drive in until the storm passes, Nancy thought desperately. The sky was now entirely overcast, and in among the trees it was as dark as night. Nancy could not see the road distinctly, and switched on the headlights of her roadster. A brisk breeze began to stir the trees, and the leaves seemed to whisper a fearful warning of the storm to come. A feeling of uneasiness took possession of Nancy Drew. She stepped on the accelerator, and the roadster fairly leapt forward as though it too understood the need for haste. Suddenly, a flash of forked lightning coursed across the sky and was followed by a loud clap of thunder. "That was close," Nancy murmured uncomfortably. She bent low over the wheel and took the curves as fast as she dared. An unexpected gust of wind struck the road and blew dust in every direction. As the cold air struck her, Nancy realized that the storm was almost upon her. Already she could see the rain sweeping down upon her from the far hills. Frantically, Nancy glanced about for a possible shelter. On down the road, a short distance, she caught sight of an old farmhouse and a dilapidated barn which stood near the highway. If only I can get there before the rain strikes me, Nancy thought anxiously. But the storm would hold off no longer. Large drops of rain began to splash against the windshield, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The sky had taken on a yellowish cast. Then, unexpectedly, came a second flash of lightning, and simultaneously, a deluge of rain. Nancy turned on the windshield wiper, but the rain was blinding in its violence. It was impossible to see more than a few feet ahead of the automobile, and almost in an instant, the road had dissolved into a sea of mud. Nancy had been caught in a number of storms, but never one like this. She feared that she would slip into a ditch before she could reach the shelter of the barn. Then, at the side of the road, the barn loomed up, and in relief, Nancy saw that the doors were wide open. Without an instant's hesitation, she headed straight for the building and drove in. Safely inside, she turned off the motor and the lights, and with a sigh of relief, sank back against the cushions. "Well, you got in just in time," said a pleasant voice behind her. Startled, Nancy Drew turned quickly and saw a girl of her own age regarding her with interest. Even as the stranger spoke, the storm broke in full violence. A cold blast of wind rattled the barn doors and sent a sheet of rain inside. "I beg your pardon," Nancy apologized as she climbed from the roadster. "It wasn't very polite of me to run in here the way I did." "You're more than welcome to the shelter, I'm sure," the stranger told her kindly. "I'm afraid we haven't much else to offer." In the semi-darkness, Nancy studied the girl curiously. She'd been impressed with her cultured voice and manner, and now she noted that her clothing, while not expensive, was neat and well made. The girl did not appear to be the daughter of a farmer who would live on this poor land, yet she seemed to fit into her background. "It looks to me as though we're in for a real storm," the girl said, and smiled pleasantly. She glanced outside at the pelting rain. "I'm afraid you'll be forced to remain here for some time." "So long as I'm not out in the rain, I don't mind," Nancy replied quickly. "That is, if you don't object." "Object?" The girl spoke impulsively. "Oh, you can't understand how eager we are for visitors. Grace and I seldom have a chance to talk with anyone our own age. Sometimes a whole week will go by, and we won't see anyone but the postman." "Hi, Swim. Hello. Hi." "What the hell, Fidge? What are you saying about me?" Nancy Drew had a natural talent for unearthing interesting stories, and now a sixth sense seemed to tell her that she had encountered something unusual. She was eager to learn more about the girl and her reason for leading such an isolated life. Check the pic of what likely is her car above? Okay. Oh my god, really? Wait, that's adorable. But I wouldn't want to be stuck in a storm in that. Well, I must thank you for your hospitality, Nancy said, with a friendly smile. After all, perhaps the storm has done us both a real favor in throwing us together. At the moment, Nancy Drew little dreamed that the next few hours were to reveal the truth of her polite utterance. End of chapter 3. It's called a Model A. Nice. Yeah, but the roof is basically just canvas, right? Chapter 4. An interesting story. The storm is getting worse every minute, Nancy Drew's companion observed. Nancy followed her to the barn door and looked out. The rain was now coming down in torrents, and as the girls stood in the doorway, a sudden gust of cold wind blew a sheet of water into their faces. "Oh, let's get back where it's dry," Nancy laughed. "This is terrible." "It's getting cold, too," her companion announced, with chattering teeth. "Why not come into the house with me? It was far more comfortable there, and unless I'm mistaken, this storm will continue for an hour or so." "Oh, I don't like to trouble you." "Oh, it's no trouble at all. Grace will never forgive me if I don't bring you inside." She turned to Nancy with an apologetic smile. "I guess I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Allie Horner, and I'm Nancy Drew." "Not the daughter of Carson Drew, the noted lawyer?" "Where are they living? Like, is that a thing for people to just know the names of lawyers?" Like, is that plausible? She's like, "Come and see our big pigsty. You've never seen so many pigs in your life." "Yes," Nancy admitted in surprise. "Do you know my father?" "Oh, no, but I guess everyone has heard of him." "Okay." Allie Horner began to take off the raincoat which she wore. "Here, take this, and I'll find you a pair of rubber boots." "I don't want to take your raincoat," Nancy protested. "What will you wear?" "Oh, I have an old coat hanging here on a nail. I'll use that. Anyway, the rain won't hurt my dress." Bro, imagine Allie is dead. Sorry. I don't think it's that kind of story. Why do I feel like Allie's like a ghost? In small towns, everyone knows your name. Yeah, but this isn't in the town. This is like Hickville outside the town. It's where the poor people live. Nancy's made it very clear. Did they have billboards back then? Under protest, Nancy donned the raincoat and put on a pair of rubber boots, which were several sizes too large for her. She made such a grotesque picture that the two girls could not help but laugh. Then they closed the barn doors. "Now," Allie directed, "let's make a dash for it." Hand in hand, they splashed through the mud toward the farmhouse. As they ran, a vivid flash of lightning momentarily illuminated the sky and caused the girls to cringe. The rain pelted down steadily, and the atmosphere was much colder than it had been 10 minutes before. "Oh, if it gets any colder, we'll have hail," Allie chattered as the two girls reached the shelter of the porch. Dropping their muddy boots outside, Allie flung open the door, and they entered a warm kitchen. They did have them, but they were called William boards. That's dumb, but I like it. As the door closed behind them, an older girl, who was bending over the kitchen range, turned toward them in surprise. "Grace, I've brought you a visitor," Allie said quickly. "Miss Drew, I want you to meet my sister. She's the mainstay of our little family." Grace Horner cordially acknowledged the introduction and greeted Nancy with a warm smile. She was tall and slender, as was her sister, with dark hair and thoughtful brown eyes. Nancy judged that she was at least 4 years older than Allie. Her face was rather serious, and it was evident that responsibility had fallen upon her shoulders at an early age. Nancy was at once attracted to both Grace and Allie. "All right, okay," and responded to their cordial welcome. "It's nice of you to take me in this way," she told them. Mercy, it's a pleasure for us, Grace assured her. We don't see a girl of our own age once in a month unless we go to Masonville, and our visits there aren't very frequent, Miss Drew. Oh, please call me by my first name, Nancy begged. Everyone does. The three girls were soon laughing and talking together as though they had always been friends. Nancy knew that she was going to like the Horner girls, and it was evident they were delighted with her. Presently, Grace deftly removed a cake from the oven and set it on the table to cool. Hey, Waxtooth. Hey, Peerthis. Let's go into the living room, she suggested. My cake is done, so I don't need to watch it. I'll give you a piece before you go, Nancy. And Grace's cakes are the real thing, Allie declared. I'm not much of a cook myself. I'd rather be outdoors. We don't wish you any bad luck, Nancy, Grace laughed as she led Nancy into the next room. But Allie and I don't care how long it storms. Well, neither do I, so long as I get home before dark, Nancy replied. Although the living room was warm and comfortable, it was nearly bare of furniture. The floors had been painted and were scantily covered with handmade rag rugs, with the exception of an old-fashioned divan, an inexpensive table, a few straight-back chairs, and an old wood stove which furnished heat. There was little in the room. However, dainty white curtains covered the windows, and Nancy realized that, although the Horner girls were poor, they had tried hard to make their home attractive. Oh, Casey King, it definitely means platonic. I was just being silly. Yeah. Surely you two girls don't live here alone, do you? Nancy inquired. Allie nodded. Grace and I have been living here ever since Father died. That was 2 years ago. Mother passed away just before that, the girl added with a slight catch in her voice. How do you manage? It must be dreadfully hard for two girls to run a farm by themselves, said Nancy in wonder. Well, our farm isn't very large now, Grace said quietly. We only have a few acres. I know you wonder how we live, but are too polite to ask, Allie broke in. Grace helps a dressmaker at Masonville whenever she can get work. She makes all our clothes, too. And I raise chickens. Chickens? Nancy asked in surprise. Can you make much at that? Well, it all depends. This year the market hasn't been so high as usual, and the price of eggs has dropped too. But I enjoy the work, and I could make it pay if only I could afford to start a flock of white leghorns. Allie is a real outdoor girl, Grace explained with a smile. We divide our work. I attend to the house, but she would rather be outside. We get along very nicely in the summer, Allie went on. We raise vegetables and have enough for our own use. But in the winter it's hard. I don't know how we'll manage this year. We'll find a way, Allie, Grace told her with a brave smile. We always have. She arose from her chair and turned to Nancy. I'm sure you're not interested in our misfortunes. Well, it's true we're poor, but I can still offer a guest a cup of tea. Excuse me while I make it. It was on the tip of Nancy's tongue to protest, but she checked the words just in time. She knew that Allie and Grace were proud and that to refuse their hospitality would hurt their feelings. I wish I could help them, Nancy thought, but if I offer to pay for the tea, they'll be offended. Perhaps later on I can engage Grace to make a dress for me. Yeah, she's not stuck up, no. In a few minutes, Grace returned to the living room, bearing a tray which had been covered with a clean white napkin. She poured the tea and served the cake with as much poise as though she were gracing an elegant drawing room. I never tasted more delicious cake in all my life, Nancy said warmly. The three girls chattered over the teacups and watched the rain beat against the windows. Presently, as Nancy noticed an unusual picture on the wall, she commented on its beauty. Good night, Loki. Yeah, she would need to teach Dorothy some manners. She commented on its beauty. Uncle Josiah gave it to us, Allie told her. If he were only alive now, things would be different. Okay, all right. At the mention of the name, Nancy started. Could it be that Allie referred to Josiah Crowley? It was very unlikely, she decided. Yet only the week before, her father had told her that there were 2 girls living on the river road who should have figured in the will. And the relationship would be worth investigating, Nancy told herself. Then your uncle is dead? She inquired sympathetically. Josiah Crowley... Sorry, pardon me. Josiah Crowley wasn't really our uncle, Grace replied, but we loved him as much as though he were a relative. Her voice broke, and for a moment she could not go on. He lived next door to us. That was when Mother and Father were alive. All our misfortunes seemed to come at once. He was the dearest man you ever saw, Allie added, taking up the story. Oh, some people thought him queer, but you never minded his peculiar ways after you knew him. He was so good and kind to us. We were neighbors for years, until the Tophams induced him to live with them. After that, everything changed. He never liked it with the Tophams, Grace declared. They weren't kind to him. He used to sneak off to visit us, didn't he, Allie? Yes, he often said that we seemed like his own children. He brought us so many nice gifts. Well, we loved him for himself and not his money, but after our parents died, he hinted that he intended to see to it that we never came to want. I remember the very last day we ever saw him alive. He told us that he intended to mention us in the will. I've planned a big surprise for you girls. You'll see it in my will. Those were his very words. And the Tophams got everything, Grace said, somewhat bitterly. Well, it isn't that we were expecting any of the money, but it does seem unfair that the entire fortune should go to them. I never cared to snap at their fingers for Uncle Josiah. I don't believe he intended to leave his money to them. Perhaps you were mentioned in the will they say can't be found, Nancy suggested. Grace and Allie exchanged significant glances and gravely nodded. That's just what we think, Allie announced. Can't something be done about it? It seems only fair that you should have your inheritance. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do, Grace said doubtfully. You see, although we are certain a will was made in our favor, we have no absolute proof. Or we have no actual proof. We haven't enough money to fight the case. Well, the Tophams ought to do something for you girls. The Tophams? Allie laughed scornfully. They wouldn't give us a cent. For some time, Allie and Grace Horner talked of Josiah Crowley and his queer ways. To Nancy, it was evident that the girls had loved the old man a great deal. Presently, as the rain ceased and the sun threatened to break through the clouds, Nancy arose to leave. Your story has interested me a great deal, she assured the Horner girls. It's possible my father can do something to help you. He is a lawyer, you know. Oh, we weren't looking for help, Grace interposed quickly. I don't know why we happened to tell you so much. Well, I'm glad you did. And if I can, I want to help you. If my father asks you to come to his office in River Heights, will you do it? Why, yes, I suppose so, Grace admitted slowly. But we've told you everything we know concerning the will. My father is a wonder at unearthing hidden facts, Nancy declared. Well, it's kind of you to tell your father about our case, Ellie broke in. We'd be so grateful if something could be done. We don't want a cent that doesn't belong to us, but it does seem as though we should have received a small inheritance. Well, don't build up your hopes until after I've talked with my father, Nancy advised them as she turned toward the door. If anything can be done, I promise I'll let you know. End of chapter 4. Yes, how convenient that this storm just happened to drive her into the house of the very two girls that are involved in this. Your stickers and magnets arrived tonight. Heck yeah, Artax. Thank you for the 100 biddies. Aw, Buddha. Well, thank you for it all the same. That's tonight? Will you be around for a name trace after we're done reading, or? She should have just inquired about the girls and went there directly. I know. Like, her father says 2 girls along River Road, and why does she not go like, oh, who are the girls? How can I find them? Would it help if we told you also? Oh, okay. She did deliver the papers to the judge, which was a totally separate task, yeah. Let me see. Okay, we've read 4 chapters. Do we read another? Do we read another? She's allowed in Judge's home, given lunch. Keep thinking of... Oh, sorry, talk about that. Yeah? Yeah? They are short. Okay. Alright, let's read another. Chapter 5. A Conference. Although the rain was no longer falling, the river road was a sea of mud, and before Nancy Drew started for home, the Horner girls insisted on helping her put chains on the rear wheels of her roadster. You'll never make it to the gravel unless you do, Gracie advised her. The river road is terribly slippery in wet weather. You sure you want to attempt it? We'd love to have you stay with us until tomorrow. Oh, I'll have only 2 miles to go before I strike gravel, Nancy returned. I'll make it all right. But before I go, I do wish you would let me pay for all the troubles I've caused you. Oh, we couldn't think of accepting money, Grace said quietly. It's been fun having you here, Allie added. At last, after thanking the Horner sisters for their hospitality, Nancy told them goodbye. Allie and Grace watched her until she had backed the roadster from the barn and was safely on the road. You're taking a big chance in this mud, called out Allie after her. If you have any trouble, come back here, added Grace. That is, if you can get back. Don't skid into a tree or into a ditch. That would be worse. What are you trying to do? Make me nervous? Demanded Nancy, but with a smile on her face. No, we only want to see you get home safely, answered Grace. And by that time the car was so far on its way, no more could be said. Once on her way, Nancy had little trouble, for she was a skillful driver. The mud was heavy, but although the roadster slipped about, she managed to keep it on the road. Nevertheless, she was relieved when at last she reached the main graveled highway. I'll stop at Father's office, she decided, as she drove into River Heights. I want to tell him about my adventure right away. She parked the car and surveyed it rather ruefully as she climbed out. Poor thing needs a bath. But even if I did get into mud, it was worth it. Otherwise, I would never have found out about the Horner girls. As Nancy was admitted to her father's... Am I going to sneeze? No. No? Okay. As Nancy was admitted to her father's private office, he arose from his chair to greet her. Oh, I'm glad you're here, safe and sound, he declared in relief. I've been worried ever since that storm came up. Well, I telephoned the house, and Hannah said you weren't back. It gave me a bad scare. I had a little adventure, Nancy announced, with an important air. Quickly, she told of her meeting with the Horner sisters and what she had learned concerning the Crowley will. Allie and Grace Horner are as poor as church mice, but they're proud too, Nancy ended. If only we could do something to help them. They deserve a portion of the Crowley estate, but they'll never get it unless someone takes a hand. From what you say, it looks as though Crowley really did make a will in their favor, Carson Drew commented thoughtfully. I never had any particular liking for Richard Topham, and I'll admit it would please me to see him lose the money. I'll be glad to do anything I can to help the Horner girls, Nancy. We might invite them to the house for a little conference. I was hoping you'd suggest that. You say the girls have no idea what became of the will. They never saw it. Well, it's possible that by talking with them we may learn something which may serve as a clue. I'll invite them to the house tomorrow, if you want me to, Nancy said quickly. Oh, you're so clever at asking questions, and the Horner girls will do anything in their power to help. Mr. Drew studied his desk calendar for a moment. All right, but make it the day after tomorrow, afternoon at 3. I have no appointment for that hour. Now that she had accomplished her purpose, Nancy gave her father a hug and fairly danced toward the door. I knew you'd try to help them, she called back over her shoulder. Now that you've promised, I'll scamper off and let you get your work done. Nancy's interest in the Crowley case had intensified since her chance meeting with the Horner girls, and it was with impatience that she awaited the conference. Nancy always drives a blue car throughout all the books. Hell yeah. Okay. All the day of the appointment, she kept watching the clock, wondering if Allie and Grace would keep the engagement. She had sent them the invitation, and they'd promised to come. But Nancy was a trifle uneasy, especially as the hour of 3 approached, and the 2 girls had not arrived. I don't see why they don't come, she fretted. The words were scarcely out of her mouth when the doorbell jangled. That must be the girls now, she cried as she hurried to open the door. It was indeed Allie and Grace Horner. Nancy greeted them enthusiastically and, ushering them into the comfortable study, introduced her father. At first, the Horner sisters were rather ill at ease, but after a few minutes they relaxed and began to talk frankly. Tell me about Josiah Crowley, Carson Drew suggested. I understand that he was rather a peculiar man. Oh, he was, Allie began impulsively. I've seen him go about hunting for his spectacles when they were on his nose all the time. Did he ever hide things? Mr. Drew inquired. Did he? Allie laughed. Oh, he was always putting things away in what he called a safe place. The place was usually so safe that he could never find it again. Okay, so he just has ADHD. Or had. They're like, what a queer man. He's just has severe ADHD. Did he ever say anything which would lead you to believe that he had hidden a will? Allie shook her head. Not that I can remember. What, he did too, Grace broke in. One day when he was at our house, he got to talking about the Tophams and the way they were trying to get his money. I guess they'll be fooled all right when they find out I've made another will, he said, with that odd little chuckle of his. This time I'm not going to trust it to any lawyer. I'll put it away in a place that I know will be safe. Oh, that's right, Ellie agreed. I'd forgotten. Was Crowley living with the Tophams at the time he told you this? Carson Drew asked quickly. Grace nodded. Do you think it's possible that he hid the will somewhere in the house? You mean at the Tophams? Grace inquired. Of course, I have no way of knowing, but it's my opinion that he did. Nancy and her father exchanged quick glances as the same thought occurred to them. Perhaps the Tophams had discovered the will and already had destroyed it. Carson Drew asked a few more questions. The Horner girls were eager to help, but they were unable to furnish additional information which had a direct bearing on the missing will. After Nancy had served tea, they thanked Carson Drew for his interest in them and arose to depart. If I find that I'm able to help you in any way, I will do so, Mr. Drew told the sisters as he escorted them to the door. And of course, there will be no charge for my services. However, unless the will is found, there is really very little that can be done. After Allie and Grace had left, Nancy turned inquiring eyes upon her father. "Charming girls," he commented, "and undoubtedly deserving." "Then you'll help them?" Nancy demanded eagerly. "I'm afraid there's nothing I can do, Nancy," Mr. Drew returned regretfully. "The will is probably lost forever. It wouldn't surprise me if it had been destroyed." "You mean the Tophams?" Carson Drew nodded. "The same thought came to me," Nancy declared. "It would be just like them to destroy it if it fell into their hands. They have no scruples whatsoever. Of course, we have no proof the Tophams did away with the will, Nancy. It would be very unwise to suggest such a thing to the Horner girls. They deserve a portion of the estate, but without the will, nothing can be done. If they took the matter to court, they wouldn't have a chance to win." "I suppose you're right," Nancy admitted unwillingly. But while she dropped the subject for the time being, Nancy Drew did not forget the Horner sisters. She continued to hope that by some queer twist of fate, they would come into their rightful inheritance. "If the will has been destroyed, I don't see how anyone can help them," she told herself rather unhappily. "But until I'm sure of it, I'm not going to give up." She squared her shoulders with determination. "I'll find some way to discover what became of the will." End of chapter 5. Alright, here's what you do, Nancy. Make friends with the heinous Topham sisters and get invited to their house and then start snooping. Artax, thank you for the 100 biddies. Oh man, how are we feeling? They are pretty short chapters. Like, that literally just took a few, like 6 minutes to read. Do we want another? How are we feeling? Do we want to move over to ASMR now? Artax says one more. Anyone else have thoughts? One more chapter, or learn to pick locks and sneak in? Okay, well that's a little riskier. Artax is double dipping, asking for one more chapter on YouTube and Twitch. Starkive says yes. Okay, one more chapter, and then we switch over to ASMR. Okay. Heck yeah. Chapter 6, An Unpleasant Encounter. In spite of Nancy Drew's firm decision to assist the Horner girls, the days slipped by, and try as she would, she could think of no way to discover whether or not the missing Crowley will had fallen into the hands of the Tophams. Although she seldom discussed the case with her father, he knew that she was troubled. "You're worrying about the Horner girls," he observed one day. "I'm afraid you're taking their misfortunes too seriously. There's nothing you can do about the will. You'd best forget about it. Well, you've scarcely been out of the house since the Horner girls were here. Go shopping, or anything, to take your mind from the subject." "I have been thinking about Allie and Grace," Nancy admitted with a rueful smile. "I was so sure I could do something for them." "Give your mind a rest, and perhaps you'll have an inspiration," Mr. Drew encouraged her kindly. "All right, I'll take your advice and go shopping, though I really haven't a thing to buy. The fresh air will do me good, I suppose." After luncheon, Nancy left the house and made her way toward the business section of River Heights. The walk was a long one, but she took it at a brisk pace. Nancy naturally was athletic, and as she swung along, more than one passerby turned to look after her in admiration. What's her flaw? What is her flaw? Does she have one? Does she have a flaw? So far, no. After window shopping for a time, she wandered into a department store, more from curiosity than because she had anything to buy. She moved about aimlessly, gazing at whatever struck her fancy. she's too modest. She's relentless and can't let go. I don't even think that's true. Like, she sticks with things, but, you know, like, days are, like, she's not obsessive. Suddenly, Nancy's attention centered upon two girls who were hurrying down the aisle ahead of her. She stopped short and stared. Though their backs were turned, she'd recognized them. Ada and Isabel Topham. I'm sure I don't want to take them around. I'll just slip down another aisle. But Nancy Drew never carried the thought into action, for at that very moment, she saw Ada brush carelessly against a counter of expensive vases. As her sleeve caught, a large, fragile bowl was swept to the floor. In horror, Nancy heard the crash and saw the bowl break into a dozen pieces. As Ada looked down upon the wreckage, a slight flush mounted to her cheeks. Then, with a toss of her head, she started to move on. Miss, I'm afraid I must ask you to pay for the bowl, a saleswoman interposed politely. Ada wheeled angrily and stared at the saleswoman insolently. I will not pay for it, she snapped. I didn't break it. Oh, but miss, I saw you knock it off the counter, the saleswoman protested. By this time, the floor manager had arrived upon the scene, and a number of shoppers had gathered around Ada and the salesgirl. Nancy likewise drew closer. This impudent girl claims I broke a vase, Ada stormed, addressing the floor manager. I wasn't even near the counter at the time. However, I did see her knock it to the floor herself. Isn't that so, Isabel? Solemnly, Isabel agreed to the untruth. The floor manager looked doubtfully from the Topham sisters to the saleswoman. He realized that it would be a serious error to accuse well-to-do customers falsely, and for that reason he was inclined to give the Topham girls the benefit of the doubt. He stooped over and examined the fragments of the bowl. Someone must pay for the damage, he said severely. This is an expensive imported bowl. Then let your clerk pay for it out of her salary, Ada retorted. If she hadn't been so stupid, she wouldn't have broken the vase. The saleswoman was too bewildered to take her own part, and Nancy saw that the floor manager was in a dilemma. As she sensed that he was about to exonerate Ada from all blame, she stepped forward. You must be mistaken, Miss Topham, she said quietly. I am certain the saleswoman did not break the bowl, for I saw the accident myself. What business have you to interfere? Ada demanded harshly, wheeling upon Nancy. Well, perhaps it isn't my business, but I can't permit you to accuse this girl of something she didn't do. You saw the accident, miss? The floor manager questioned. Yes. As Miss Topham walked by the counter, her sleeve caught in the vase. It isn't true, Ada snapped. But I'm tired of this silly argument. How much do you want for your vase? The floor manager studied a price list. $50. What? Ada fairly screamed. You want $50 for that old bowl? I'll never pay it. Well, the vase was imported from Italy, miss, and I'm afraid you must pay the price, and you must pay the price asked. Do you know who I am? Ada inquired loftily. Why, I think everyone in the city knows about the Richard Tophams, the floor manager returned wearily. My father owns... He doesn't own this store, the man interrupted with growing impatience. If you refuse to pay for the vase, I shall be forced to turn you over to the authorities. You wouldn't dare, Ada gasped. Never in all my life have I been insulted like this. $50 in 1930s equivalent in purchasing power to approximately $970.43. Up to potentially $986 today. Okay, almost $1,000 for this vase. Okay, good context. Yeah. Isabel, who was slightly more reasonable than her sister, now held a whispered conference with Ada. "All right, I'll pay for the bowl," Ada decided, as she took out her checkbook. "But let me warn you, the matter won't be dropped here." She turned upon Nancy Drew and eyed her coldly. "I'm not through with you either, young lady. You'll pay for this outrage." Nancy made no reply, but continued to smile pleasantly, an act which further enraged the Topham sisters. Hastily settling for the damage Ada had done, they sailed grandly out of the store. Gratefully, the saleswoman thanked Nancy. "Oh, you don't know how I appreciated the way you took my part. I couldn't have paid for the bowl, and if you hadn't said what you did, the floor manager probably would have discharged me. I saw her break the bowl, and I was determined to see justice done. There is my name and address, if you need it," and Nancy handed the woman her card. "I'm afraid you've made enemies by taking my part." Nancy shrugged her shoulders indifferently. It really doesn't matter. The Topham girls were never my friends." "But they may try to get even with you. They're very spiteful." "Let them try," Nancy smiled. "However, I don't believe there's any need to worry. Their talk is mostly bluff." Lightly, Nancy Drew dismissed the subject, and as she found she was being regarded with curiosity and admiration by those who had witnessed the scene, left the store. She walked slowly toward the park. "Oh, it makes my blood fairly boil every time I think of Ada and Isabel Topham getting all of the Crowley fortune," she told herself with feeling, "especially when Grace and Allie Horner need the money so badly. The way Ada tried to accuse that shop girl was disgusting." Nancy crossed the public park and paused for a moment at the drinking fountain. As she glanced up, she saw that unwittingly she had selected the path Isabel and Ada Topham had taken. Upon leaving the department store, they too had gone to the park and were now seated upon a bench, engaged in earnest conversation. Their heads were close together, and from the expression on their faces, Nancy suspected that they were discussing her. Well, unless she retraced her steps, it would be necessary to pass directly in front of them. "Well, if they see me, they are certain to say something mean," Nancy thought. "And if they do, I'll be sure to lose my temper. I know," she decided impulsively. "I'll take the path through the bushes and avoid them. I can pass behind that bench and they'll never notice me." Or you could just turn around. But sure, you can go skulking through the bushes, Nancy, that's fine. Nancy Drew was never seen again. Uses her 1% privilege for good? Hell yeah. Ada and Isabel were so engrossed in their conversation that they failed to notice Nancy's approach. Chuckling to herself, Nancy left the sidewalk and quietly made her way down the path, which was shaded with overhanging bushes. She had no intention of She had no intention of attempting to overhear what the Topham sisters were saying, but as she noiselessly approached the bench where they were sitting, 2 words reached her ears, causing her to pause involuntarily. Ada was speaking, and the phrase which Nancy had accidentally overheard was, "the will." In a flash, her suspicions were aroused. She comprehended the significance of the phrase. "It must be Josiah Crowley's will they're talking about," she reasoned. "Perhaps they know something about the missing will. They may reveal what became of it." With the instinct of a detective, Nancy Drew crept cautiously closer. The bushes were thick, and by crouching low behind the bench, she was able to hear without being seen. Oh, if only she might learn something which would prove that the Tophams had deprived the Horner girls of their inheritance. Okay, well, we need to read the next chapter where she's like, one more, because we need to She's hiding in the... We can't leave her hiding in the bushes. We can't leave her there in the bushes. Okay, hold on. One more. Chapter 7. Nancy turns sleuth. While Nancy Drew eagerly waited, scarcely daring to breathe naturally lest her presence be detected, Ada began to speak. Well, if there should happen to be another will, we may be dumped, she said sourly. I don't believe Josiah Crowley ever made such a will, Isabel replied, in so low a tone that Nancy scarcely caught the words. Well, evidently Nancy Drew does, or she wouldn't be taking such an interest in those Horner girls, Ada returned. I know she had them at her house last week, because I was passing and saw them go in. Oh, how I hate that girl. If she should get her father interested, he might dig up another will. Well, even if another will does turn up, we can trust Dad to take care of it, Isabel commented dryly. You mean he would... Never mind what I mean, Isabel insinuated darkly. Mother and Dad wouldn't be simple enough to let that money get away from us. It's ours by right, anyhow. Didn't Josiah Crowley live on us? Yes, we ought to have all the money after enduring him for nearly 3 years. Just the same, I don't like the way Nancy Drew has taken up with the Horner girls. She always did have a way of nosing into things she had no business to find out. Oh, pooh for her, Isabel scoffed. Let her try to discover anything she likes. The money was given to us fairly enough. The conversation ended abruptly as Isabel and Ada arose from the bench and walked on down the street. Nancy waited till they were out of sight and then emerged from the bushes. There may be a chance to find that missing will after all, she reasoned as she sank down on the bench vacated by Isabel and Ada. Nancy had always been convinced that Josiah Crowley had made a second will. However, since her talk with the Horner girls, she had shared her father's opinion that the document had fallen into the hands of the Tophams only to be destroyed. This conviction had discouraged her. Now, the information which she had gleaned from the snatch of overheard conversation gave her new hope. From what Isabel and Ada had said, she was led to believe that if Josiah Crowley had made a second will, the Tophams were as ignorant as herself concerning its whereabouts. Is it Jakey Boy or Jackie Boy? Hello, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Hello. Anyway, it's encouraging to know the will hasn't been destroyed, Nancy told herself. But there's one thing certain. If the Tophams ever get their hands on it, they'll take care it never comes to light. From what Isabel and Ada said, I judge they're beginning to realize their position is anything but secure. If I'm ever to find that will, I must get busy before they beat me to it. Nancy Drew possessed her father's liking for a mystery, and she delighted in a battle of wits when championing a worthy cause. Carson Drew had often remarked that he enjoyed the detective work of his cases better than the court work, but Nancy knew that he was too busy with his own cases to devote much attention to the missing Crowley will. If anything were done to help the Horner girls win their inheritance, she must accomplish it herself. What is all this? Really? Nim, I don't think she wants you in there, Nimbus. Back those cheeks up. Thank you. As Nancy reviewed the facts of the case, it seemed to her that she must have overlooked a possible clue. Never had a mystery appeared more baffling. For nearly 10 minutes, Nancy sat lost in deep thought. Is that a long time to be lost in deep thought? Sorry, just as someone with ADHD, that feels like a really short time to be lost in thought. I don't know. Like, I've been lost in thought, I'm pretty sure, for like long stretches of time sometimes. I don't know. Then, with a cry of delight, she sprang to her feet. How stupid of me not to think of it before. The Horner girls aren't the only ones who should have figured in the will. Well, there were a number of relatives, and Father said that they filed a claim too. sure. If I could talk to them, it's possible I might learn something that would have a bearing on the case. I guess if it's just the one thought, okay, fair. Convinced that the inspiration was a happy one, she set off toward her father's office. He was engaged in an important conference when she arrived, and Nancy was forced to wait 10 minutes before she was admitted to the inner office. It's okay, Nancy, that's long enough to get lost in your thoughts again. Now what? Her father asked, smiling as she burst in upon him. Is it a new dress you want? Nancy's cheeks were flushed, and her eyes danced with excitement. Don't try to tease me, she protested. I've stumbled onto something important, and I want information. At your service, Nancy, Mr. Drew said. But if it's about that Crowley case, I've told you everything I know. Nancy poured out the story of her encounter with the Topham sisters in the department store and told of the conversation she had overheard in the public park. Mr. Drew listened with interest until she had finished. And now, what is it that you want? He asked gravely. I thought if I went to those other relatives, I might be able to learn something which may help solve the mystery. Good idea, Nancy. But I don't know their names, and that's why I came to you. I wish I could help you, but I'm afraid I can't, Mr. Drew said regretfully. Nancy's face fell. Wait a minute, he called as she turned to leave. I can't supply the names you want, but I think I can tell you where to find them. Where? At the courthouse. They should be on file. He glanced at his watch and frowned. But I'm afraid it's too late to go there this afternoon. Oh, and I'm anxious to find out right away, Nancy declared in disappointment. If I delay even a single day, the Tophams may get ahead of me and find that will. Suddenly, her face brightened as she thought of something. I know. I'll jump into the roadster and run out and have a talk with the Horner girls. They should be able to furnish me the information. You can try them at least. That's just what I'll do, Nancy decided as she turned again toward the door. Just a minute, Carson Drew stopped her. I wonder if you realize just what you are getting into, Nancy? Why, what do you mean? Only this. Detective work isn't always the safest occupation in which to engage. I happen to know that Richard Topham is an unpleasant man when crossed. If you actually succeed in learning anything which may help the Horner girls, you are certain to have the Tophams in your wool. Well, I'm not afraid of them, Father. Good, Mr. Drew exclaimed. I was hoping you would say that. I'm glad you have the courage of your convictions, but I didn't want you to march off into battle without a knowledge of what, undoubtedly, you will be up against. Battle? Yes, battle. Rest assured, the Tophams won't give up the fortune without a bitter struggle. However, if they attempt to make serious trouble, I promise to deal with them myself. I only wish I had the time to help you find the will. And if I find it, well, I'll take the matter into court. Oh, thank you. Oh, there's no one like you in all the world. Nancy moved toward the door. I may not get back until rather late, she threw back over her shoulder. I have a feeling I may discover a real clue today, and if I do, I'm going to trail it down. With characteristic impetuosity, she darted from the room, permitting the office door to bang behind her. End of chapter. Oh, that's a much nicer place to stop. Heck yeah, he is a good dad. Yeah. Oh man. Yay! Artex, thank you for the 100 biddies. Yeah, this is a fun read. And just like so relaxing, because it's a very simple story. Do you know what I mean? Like it's engaging enough that it's not boring, but it's also like just relaxing. It's super chill. Yeah. Oh, great. Well, we read 7 chapters tonight, and there's 25. It won't take us long to read this at that speed. Nice. Okay, you guys, this has been a lot of fun. Here's the plan. I am going to end the YouTube streams, but we're going to keep going on Twitch. I'm going to take a few minutes to stretch and shove something in my gob, and then we will do some ASMR. Battle Aiden, so good to see you. Got to stream in EU times. Oh, Battle Aiden. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday. Maybe someday. Yes, well, let me punch my microphone first. If you've been watching on YouTube, whether during the live stream or if you're here watching the VOD afterwards, thank you so much. Any time spent watching this, whether live or afterwards, counts towards the watch hours that I need to accrue to qualify for the YouTube Partner Program, so I am immensely grateful to anyone who's watching over there. You know, drop a like, because hopefully you liked it. And if you haven't subbed yet, please make sure to sub. And we will be back next live on this YouTube channel on Thursday night. So just in a couple of days, we'll be continuing on with The Secret of the Old Clock, which was, I'm really enjoying this so far. All right. If you are live on YouTube and you're only watching on YouTube and you want to come over to Twitch, let me pop that into the chats of both YouTube channels. You can come hang out there for the rest of the evening if you'd like. Yeah, all right. Bye, YouTube. Bye.